Welcome to the D-Spot podcast. Dr. Dana McNeil is a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in working with couples using the Gottman method. Her evidence-based practice provides support for the wide range of relationship issues that modern couples face. By using her open, affirming, and outside-of-the-box thinking, Dr. Dana is able to approach her work with couples by bringing both insights and tools that reflect the realities of today's complicated relationships. Dr. Dana features guests on her podcast that include a unique array of celebrities, CEOs, influencers, and everyday folks who are all working on navigating new conversations about how society views what goes into a successful relationship. And now, here's your host, Dr. Dana McNeil.
Welcome to the D-Spot podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Dana McNeil, and today I am very excited to introduce you to someone who is a mentor of mine. This is Dr. Stephen Jones. You're going to meet him. He is a nationally known guru of all things leadership, diversity, equity, and inclusion. He is the founder and CEO of a company called Jones Inclusive, and my friend, Dr. Jones, has dedicated his career to building a world-class global consulting firm that is invested in strengthening its clients' ability to excellence through diversity, inclusion, and organizational excellence. He has previously served as a national diversity consultant to Honda, to Qualcomm, the NBA, Sony Music, Toyota. I mean, it just goes on and on. He is the shiznat of everything involving diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I would describe him, from my personal experience with him, as a visionary, a transformational speaker, an innovative executive, and more importantly, he is incredibly down to earth, and he is the kind of leader that I aspire to be. So hello, my friend, welcome.
You are too kind. Hello. It is so good to be here with you. And I am a part of the Dr. McNeil Mutual Fan Association. Yes.
Oh, goodness. Well, I appreciate that. Don't make me blush, my friend. So I have recently become acquainted with you from an organization that we both care about, which is Lead San Diego.
Yes.
And they paired me up and they're like, so I know this is a women's organization, but here we're going to have you meet with Dr. Jones. And I'm like, okay, fantastic. This sounds great. But I have been so fortunate to get to know you because you are just incredibly inspiring, and the work that you do is important. And so I think it's important to talk about this in relationship, right? Because It is all about relationships. So for those of us that have been living under a rock, tell us, what is diversity, equity, and inclusiveness? So give us like the pitch.
Yes, you got it. Well, I think about diversity as the differences, right? Like whether that's personality differences, whether that's family cultural differences, whether that is you like the water cold, I like the water hot differences. It's about differences.
Okay.
Inclusion is about the experiences of those differences. Do I feel seen? Do I feel heard? Do I feel respected? Meaning, can we be in the same room and having different experiences, and that difference is considered, responded to, right, and understood?
Yeah.
Right. And then equity is really about, like fairness. Do I feel like our decisions with each other are fair? And equity is different than equality. Equality is everybody gets the same. Equity is, I like oranges and you like bananas. So don't give me an orange and think that that's going to feel fair when I'm telling you what my needs are. So you can see in relationships, equity, fairness plays a big part, right, in healthy relationships, right? So do we see our differences? Do we work to understand and value those differences? Do we then make decisions with those differences in mind? right? And that's where those three kind of come together.
Yeah. So do you think that in relationships that when we have something that just doesn't feel like we're connecting, that we know that this is what's going on?
I think it's, the 5 love languages.
Oh, Gary Chapman, old 5 love languages.
It's
Okay.
all about diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
If my love language is quality time and yours is acts of service,
Mm-hmm.
and you're never there, but you get my car cleaned. And I'm going, but all I wanted was forget getting the car cleaned. I just wanted 30 more minutes of your time.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
equity,
Yeah.
right? Now, folks don't name it equity,
Sure.
right? Many people name it, you don't care. Many people name it in relationships, you don't understand me.
Yeah.
You're not listening to me, right? And so often I think part of, you know, these dynamics of differences play out in relationships without them being named,
Mm.
right? And I think that's where the struggle happens. I think another area is family as culture, right? The way that I was raised, the way that you were raised, the way that I think we should raise our kids based on the way that I was raised, or the opposite of how I was raised, right? All of that, from my viewpoint, are different dynamics of diversity,
Mm. Mm.
right? We sometimes will ask folks, we're coming up on the holidays, right? Holiday traditions, that's diversity, right? Whether we put raisins in the in the potato salad or not, that's diversity, right? And so that idea of really working to understand each other within the cultural context of our family,
Mm. Yes. So do
right?
we start having a conversation then? I mean, you're going to tell me where to start, but I would imagine
Yes.
that we start by talking about our expectations, because that's what's driving some of our disappointments.
I think, yes, talking about our expectations and the source of our expectations.
Mm.
That's where culture comes in, right? That's where family comes in. That's where understanding instead of agreement comes in. I don't have to understand. I was talking with a friend of mine, and he said that his partner, like for her to feel safe,
Mhm.
there always needed to be candy in the candy jar. And for him, he was like, what is this? Like, why is this important?
If you have some Snickers and some M&Ms, there's world peace.
There's world peace in their house, right? He said he finally had a conversation with her to ask her what this was about.
Mm.
And she said when they were growing up, they couldn't afford extras, and candy was an extra.
Mm. It wasn't a necessity. It
It
was like
wasn't
an
right.
indulgence.
An
Okay.
indulgence. And so for her, part of feeling like she was achieving things in life and that she was able to afford the life that she wanted, that involved having that candy jar full.
Mm. That makes
Right.
perfect sense.
Right? But if we don't talk about it,
Yeah.
to understand the why, and that's where diversity comes into play in our relationships, comes into play in our friendships, comes into play in our, lifetime partnerships.
Mm.
It's about understanding that for different reasons, somebody told me once, culture is defined as maps of meaning that
Mm.
we as humans use to make sense of the world.
Wow. Yeah. That's our point of context. That's our
That's right.
reference point. That's our
Maps of meaning.
value system.
Exactly. And so then to have a strong, healthy relationship, it becomes important that we communicate not only the what, but that we also communicate the why and the stories behind the why. And I would suggest that's where love lives,
Oh,
right? Yeah.
How do we encourage? I love all that. True. All true, true,
Mhm.
true, true. How do we then? So for me as a couples therapist, I'm mostly
Yes.
dealing with couples, you're dealing with
Mhm,
relationships in
mhm,
general.
mhm,
There's this sense that if I acknowledge your perspective, that
mhm.
means I agree with it. And so if I
Yes,
don't give you that grace of being like, well, there's a little asterisk here. I can let
yes,
you do you. And it doesn't mean I agree with it or that's how I live my life, but it doesn't take
yes,
something away from me to be like, well, that makes perfect sense. You like some
yes,
M&Ms.
yes, yes, yes. Kiss it. So that connects to me to the point around that's where love lives, right? And is. Because if we define love as unconditional acceptance,
Hmm.
then it says, when I accept you unconditionally, it does not mean that it requires you to agree with me,
Yeah.
right? And if you're doing the same for me, then, and here's a great example. I was in a relationship and my partner knew that I loved cigars, right? That for me was relaxation. That for me was, on a Sunday when I'm just kind of getting ready for the week, I'll go out on the patio, smoke a stogie, I'm good.
Okay.
She hated it.
The smell,
The
the
smell, the smoke,
okay.
she was like, you go do that.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to be in the house.
Uh-huh. Okay.
For my birthday, she bought me a humidor.
Because it wasn't about her.
It wasn't about her. It was about what she knew about me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's where the difference between when am I in relationship with someone for who they are
Yeah.
versus when am I in relationship with someone in comparison to who I am,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
In my work with the Gottman method, we call that accepting the things that you cannot change about your partner.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because so
Yes.
much time we spend in it, it should be different. I should be able to like have this person
Yes.
do these things that I need them to do versus
Absolutely.
that's not who you married. So get on board.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Those are deal breakers. Discuss them in the beginning of the relationship, right?
Don't be getting crazy now. Have a conversation about values at the beginning, Stephen. Come on now.
We can hope, we can dream.
So we
Yeah.
start with the why.
Yes.
Here you say, start with the why, have compassion for why the why is an integral part of somebody's DNA or their
Yes.
value system.
Yes.
Don't make it incumbent on them agreeing with you to give them that
Yes.
support.
Yes.
What's the next step?
Let's connect to that last step. What if we built relationships around understanding each other instead of agreeing with each other?
Okay.
Right? Like that says, I've seen this in couples that have been together for a long time, right? They can order each other's food, they can finish each other's sentences, they can talk about the things that drives them mad, right? As one friend of mine says, gets on their last nerve. And they love that person.
Yeah.
Right? Because when I understand my partner, then I understand something as simple as they want sparkling water, not flat. Right? When I understand my partner, I understand if I don't call in when I'm staying late in the office, that is going to be very hurtful to that person. Right. And so then I take action out of understanding instead of taking action out of agreement.
Yes. And to play that out a bit more,
Yes.
I don't need you to convince me that I agree with your perspective in order to give
Yes.
you that gift. Because anything I
Yes.
do for my partner is a gift. I'm not
It's a
required by
gift.
virtue of the fact we're in a relationship with each other.
That's right.
So I want to give you that gift, even if it makes zero sense to me,
That's right.
not because it's what's in line with my value system, but because I respect yours and that I believe that you've well thought yours out. So it must be important or you wouldn't be asking me for it.
That's right. That's right. And it does not have to be important to me in that same situation, right? I think one of the most ineffective questions is, wouldn't you feel the same if you were in that situation?
That's a female favorite question to ask, though. We all want to know, well, if your friend was doing that and not wanting to go shoe shopping with you, Dr. Jones, would you be upset too?
Well, that's where empathy comes into play, right? Going, I can empathize that you're upset, right? In that same situation, I might feel different.
So that's not a fair question for us to ask, is because we don't all come to each experience with the same family of origin, the same cultural references, the same expectations, the same disappointments, the same cultural experience.
Yes.
That it's not fair to ask somebody to judge your situation through your lens, but through their lens.
Yes. Well, and I think, is the question being asked the real question?
Oh, you mean we're passive aggressive sometimes in relationships?
I'm not saying that.
We meander around and don't come to the point.
I think there are many times and ways that all of us ask questions that are hidden questions. You know what I mean? Are questions that say, do I make sense? Right. And I think answering that question, right, can you understand why I feel the way that I feel, is oftentimes the real question that's being asked. Right? Do you care? Are oftentimes the real questions that are being asked. And I think we ask that. Men ask it in certain ways, women ask it in certain ways, folks who don't land on the binary ask it in different ways, you know. And so now let me be clear. I don't get all this right.
Oh, you're a human being? Awesome.
Oh, I have many, many lessons that I have learned that have taught me what I'm saying. Absolutely.
So how do we, in, taking all of this into consideration, how do we ask the why without it being offensive? Because it's my experience that sometimes there's a expectation that you should already know, or you're not woke, or you obviously don't care about the world, or you're living under a rock, or you're just not aware. And so how do we bridge that gap where I'm genuinely asking from a place of curiousness and I've met with furiousness because I don't already know that? How do we do that in all our relationships with everybody that we know and care about?
I was doing listening session after the murder of George Floyd. We listened to over 75,000 people in a matter of 3 months.
Wow.
And the level of pain, the level of, I'll say, trauma and triggers that happen, for many people was just huge.
Yeah.
There was the topic came up around, knowing that you don't know, and how do you ask someone to help you learn?
Yeah.
And there was a young African-American woman on the in the meeting who said, we all have the same Google.
Oh.
We all have the same, we all have the same YouTube. We can all look up any topic that we want to learn more about and start there. And I thought that was just so powerful, right? That says one of the ways to show that I care is to do some work and take some steps to increase my knowledge, so that then when I come to you to ask for more knowledge, I start with telling you what I have uncovered, what I've discovered, what I am learning. And then
put some effort in.
Absolutely.
Okay.
that
Because
we
that doesn't feel as offensive as I've done nothing. I've just been kicking back. I'm sure you'll educate me on the key points. I'll decide what I want to validate and what I don't want to validate. And then I get to have all the power to decide whether or not I acknowledge you.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Folks say skill up, do the work,
Mm,
and then we can talk.
okay.
But don't come to me, because there's a couple of things that happens. When you come to me with a question, then it assumes that I didn't have to work to come up with the answer.
Oh, okay. Like I'm disrespecting what it's taken for you to get to that point.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the synonymous to people saying, well, they're a natural athlete
Mm,
versus the number of hours they put in the
right.
gym,
Right.
right? Like the
Yeah.
natural is, I'll just say,
A baseline.
right?
Mm,
That says you're born with, which then starts to go towards dehumanization. That's not the intent,
okay.
right? But that's what the person is saying. And if you think I'm a natural athlete, then do you also think I'm a natural criminal? Right? That's where people, yeah, that seems like a big jump, right? Because if you believe in the natural, then you also then go, it's not natural for me to be a scientist because there's not many scientists who look like me. It's not natural for me to be a chemist because there's not a lot of chemists that look like me. But you would say it's natural for me to be an athlete because there's a lot of athletes who look like me.
So we're buying into stereotypes.
Exactly.
And we're feeding that baseline of like ignorance and okay.
Absolutely. Because we know the way the brain works is, we're going into neuroscience now. The brain, right, will connect certain concepts with each other, right? And then will pull files associated with certain concepts, certain people, certain groups more quickly than others,
Mhm.
right? Now, the person doesn't realize that they're asking the question out of naivete,
Right. Yeah.
is also communicating what their brain has put together on a lot of different issues.
Their system one brain versus their system two brain.
Absolutely.
For those who are not listening, who are not used to that concept, what is it? What does that mean to you? What is a system one brain?
Well, the way I think about a system one brain is kind of the associations and the neural pathways
The
that,
cultural quickisms, the
yes,
like the reasons that they can show something on a commercial and you have an
yes,
emotional impact.
exactly.
Okay. And then
Versus the
system
system
two,
two, which is you have to think about and evaluate,
challenge. Yeah. You have to
right?
challenge your assumptions and challenge
Absolutely.
your connections, whether or not that's a story that actually adds up.
Absolutely.
So if we have a couple, listening who come from different backgrounds or different experiences, what you're kind of tying together is be aware that you're making some assumptions that you may not even know are firing in the background.
That's right.
Pause your dang self.
Yes.
Like connect if that's really true or that's just like what you've received from your experience on the
Yes.
planet.
Yes.
Do a little bit of research.
Yes.
Go like, don't go into this blind and be like, tell me all about yourself.
Yes.
Go there, gather some information, and then come with educated questions about the
Absolutely.
why.
Absolutely.
Did I
And
get it?
then that's it. That's it.
Okay.
Right.
That's basic. And then what do
Yes.
we do next?
So then I think we incorporate that knowledge into the way we move together.
Okay.
Incorporate that knowledge and the use of questions when we hit up differences in our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I have one approach I want to take and you have a different approach, instead of focusing on why don't you see it my way,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then it focuses instead on the focus instead should go on Three powerful words. Help me understand.
Mhm.
Help me understand what's making you want to go in that direction. Now, you can say the words and have it mean different
Yeah,
things.
there's not a tone in there. There's not a arms crossed, like, help me
Right?
understand why you view the world that way. It's like curious versus furious,
That's
right?
right.
It's like,
That's
I
right.
want to know you at a deeper level so that I
That's
can
right.
acknowledge it, not change your
That's
perspective.
right. Help
Okay.
me understand how in the world you could ever think that was about. No, that's not what we're talking about. Right? And so that I love the word that you've used a number of times around curiosity. I think we sometimes, not sometimes, many times, that word ends up being removed
Mm,
from the criteria of if you love me.
mhm.
If you love me, you'll stay curious,
Yeah.
versus if you love me, you would already know.
Yes. And oftentimes when we've already broken down in our communication with each other, I'm not only not curious, but I can no longer hold you in a positive
That's
perspective.
right.
And then it's like a huge uphill battle from
That's
there.
right. That's right.
Mhm.
Because all of our relationships occur within a cultural context.
Mm,
So we say diversity is not a thing to do, it's the way we do all that we do.
mhm.
And so the idea of culture, right, again, as those maps of meaning, culture, and I'll just give you a quick example of I was hanging out with a friend of mine and I was returning some clothes, right? And I walk into the store, she is a white woman, and this was a number of years ago. And she says to me, I had the clothes in a bag, and I was headed towards the counter to tell the person at the counter that I was coming to return the clothes. And I was going to ask them, did they want me to, just give them the bag, or is it? As I was walking towards the counter, she says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to return the clothes." She says, "Yeah,
Right.
you don't have to go there. You can just hold the bag and go and find what you were replacing and then bring both up to the counter and then you'll exchange from there."
Okay.
Dana, the 10-year-old in me freaked out because I was like,
I'm gonna get in trouble.
as a young Black man
Oh,
with a bag with clothes in it, I was taught, and my experience has been, and my parents' experience has been, and their parents' experience has been that people assume that you are shoplifting first, and then you have to prove that you are not. And so the coping strategy, the staying alive strategy,
yeah.
was you go to the counter, you tell them that you're replacing the clothes, you're exchanging the clothes, you ask them whether they want to hold the package or not. And many times you just give them the clothes and say, "I'll be back with the clothes I want to exchange," because you don't want to risk what could be someone calling the police, someone you getting detained, and then who knows what encounters with the police where they end up. And so we have, as we know, a lot of people in multi-ethnic, interracial relationships, right? And that's just one example
Right.
of where culturally the way we move and interpret. And this was just like we met up in the morning, had breakfast, and we didn't go, "I'm a Black man, you're a white woman, we're going to exchange clothes." We were two friends going,
Yeah.
she was coming with me. But that's where culture shows up in the everyday situation.
I love that example because that is something that any couple would just kind of take for granted, that
Mhm.
we flow the same way through life, and
That's right.
that there would be an opportunity for an insult or some guilt or
Mhm.
some shame or some
Mhm.
trigger that somebody wouldn't even understand about. And if then you reach at them with the help me understand
Yes.
versus the help me understand, right?
Yes.
That could really have an impact on how much we create a deeper level of intimacy and safety.
Exactly. Exactly.
That was a beautiful example. Thank you
Thank
for that.
you. Thank you. Well, and that plays out across socioeconomic differences, right? That plays out across regional differences.
Yeah.
That plays out, I grew up as another example of culture defining just our everyday. I grew up in an environment in Louisiana, small town, where mental distance was different than physical distance, meaning going to the town next door, which was 15 minutes away, was called a day trip.
Okay. Were you riding on a turtle? Okay.
Right? It was like you're going to the town next door. I'm telling you,
It was a world away.
if people got a job in the town 15 minutes away, they moved.
Wow. Okay. So
Because
just day and night difference.
going back and forth was not necessary.
Wow.
It was too far away. 45 minutes, I drive in San Diego to check my mailbox.
Yes, we do.
Right? In my hometown, that's a trip to the state capitol.
Wow.
And so again, I give that example of culture. I give that example of when we're in relationships across differences, that the need to stay curious, ask the why. And I would suggest all relationships are multicultural relationships because we come from different families. As culture, we come from different regions, we come, so on and so forth. I'll give one quick example around a speaker who is a dear friend of mine, a colleague who is Latina, and she married a man of German descent. And she would talk about how she had to learn what love looks like when they had kids, and they would go to her Latina parents, where when they would bring the kids, her mother would kiss all over the kids and, give them big hugs and would just greet them with open arms and then escort them into the kitchen where there was, and that's what love looked like to her. She said the first time they would bring their kids to her, their grandparents on her husband's side. And when her mother-in-law would open the door, she would pat the kids on the head. There were no kisses.
Yeah.
There were no hugs. And then she would escort them into the kitchen where she had milk and cookies for the kids. And she said, and the kids loved it. And that's what love looked like.
Yeah.
And she says it would have been easy for her to say to her husband, this is not what love looks like. Like, what's wrong with your mom? Like, why is she not hugging our kids? Why, but again, culture, maps of meaning, that when we realize that there are just differences that we say, I like you enough to understand your differences, to accept your differences, and then to take those differences into account as I move in this relationship.
Because I respect you enough to respect that those differences created the person that I love.
Exactly.
This is awesome. Those illustrate beautifully these big sort of theories and words and concepts, but break them down into like realistic situations where people would be motivated to seek out understanding these theories and
Yes.
concepts more. So you did a lovely job of marrying the two. Thank
Well,
you for
thank
that.
you. Thank you. I
And
appreciate
of course, I admire you. So I could listen to you all day and soak you up like a sponge, but I know you got stuff to do. How do people find you if they want to know more about your organization or about you and the work that you do?
Sure. So they can find me. We have a website, www.jonesinclusive.com. On social media, on LinkedIn, we are Jones. Actually, it's we.r.jones.
We always have to have all our little special stuff. Yes.
Right. On Instagram, I'm at Dr. Stephen Jones, and the same on LinkedIn.
Well, thank you again. I so much admire you, and I'm
Well,
a
thank
better
you.
person for knowing you. So thank you so much for giving us some of your time.
And you are very, very welcome. And we are connected for life.
Yeah, you're my people. All right, my love. Take good care of
Awesome.
yourself.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
This has been the D-Spot Podcast with Dr. Dana McNeil. To learn more about Dr. Dana's practice, simply visit us at www.danamcneil.com.